Okay, so day 39, I think. Um, Thursday, September something. We left. Well, my brain just shut down. Okay, so we left Victor, Idaho this morning. Quite cold. Um, Sarah was a little bit alarmed while we were packing the bikes. We were out in front of the hotel, parked underneath the little cover out of the rain, and it was in the upper 30s, lower 40s, I think. And a big dump truck, like the highway department dump truck, goes by with a big snow plow in the front of it. And she's like, "Is it snowing?" It's about. She's she's tired of being cold. We all are. But the plan today was to head down to a little town called Alpine, right on the Wyoming-Idaho border, and then follow this. I think it's Grays River Road down through the mountains towards Diamondville. Uh, but the weather was bad, so I created an alternate route just in case. So we left Victor, went up over the mountains towards Swan Valley on Highway 31, and it was chilly and it was wet. I mean, it was raining the whole time. A lot of low hanging clouds down in the mountains and the valleys and stuff. It was pretty. The aspen trees are finally really starting to change in a lot of places. It was just cold. Not a lot of traffic. The road was in pretty good condition. So, everybody's running heated gear. I didn't have my vest on yet, but I was pretty well bundled up. Got the heated hand grips going. Daniel was having trouble with his visor fogging up. I've got a pin lock on my helmet, which is like a second film that goes on the inside of your visor that makes a seal, so it's almost like a double pane window. And then the inner surface that faces your nose and mouth is hydrophobic, so it doesn't collect moisture, so when you exhale it won't fog up. First time I've used one, and I have to say it works really, really well. I'm very impressed. Probably be one of those features I have on every helmet from now on, because I've had trouble in the past with my Arai XD4 whatever, fogging up like crazy, and it had a pin lock on it. For some reason I just never used it. I think it's because it didn't come with it in the helmet I got right now, the Krios, the Climb Krios. It actually came with the pin lock, so I just went ahead and installed it. Love it. The riding we were doing today, there's no way I would have been able to do that with my XD4. I would have just had to stop riding. It's that bad about fogging up. Anyway, we got to Swan Valley. Daniel was cold. Well, we were all cold, but Daniel wanted to pull into this place on the right side of the highway. It was a really, really nice general store, grocery store, gas station. I mean, everything. It had a butcher shop in it, had a hardware store in it, had a deli that was cranking out sandwiches for people, and it was warm inside. So I don't even think we got gas. We just parked the bikes up underneath the cover where all the pumps were, and it was a good cover, so the pumps were also pretty far apart, so we had room where we could park between the pumps and not block them so people could still get gas, so no one complained about that. And I watched to make sure they stayed clear. But went inside, sat down, and just warmed up, dried out a little bit. Both kids got sandwiches to eat, and we're sitting there, and all of a sudden the power just goes off. And there's a huge Caterpillar generator right outside the window, like you see, for office buildings and stuff. And immediately I see the little lid on top of the exhaust pipe pop open, because that thing's coming on really quick. I mean, the power is off 5-10 seconds maybe, if that, before that generator was up and running. And not everything came back on. Nowadays everything has to reboot. Coke machines have to reboot. It was ridiculous. It took that thing 2 or 3 minutes to reboot before you could start getting a Coke out of it. I was watching it. Even had the little thing sitting there with the little line going around the circle while it reboots. everything had to reboot. And of course, in the deli, they were having trouble getting everything coming back up. Coke machine had issues after it came back up. It was throwing an error code, something was wrong. But anyway, generator ran for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes before the power came back on and it shut off, and everything mostly back to normal. And, we probably were there for, I'd say an hour, at least close to an hour. And they were having trouble with something in the kitchen still. So they had a guy come in who's, I guess, like a manager or something, and he was looking at this piece of equipment trying to get it working. And about the time we started trying to decide what we were going to do, I asked him, I was like, hey, are you familiar with this road? He's like, oh, yeah, I know that road. I was like, well, is it paved or gravel? He's like, well, right where it turns to gravel, I flipped my truck when I was in high school. So, yeah, I know that road well. I'm like, okay, well, have you been on it recently? Because this guy was older than me. Not that old. No. He hadn't been back on it in a long time. But then he tells me that whichever way we're going, US 26 was closed down. We'd heard emergency service vehicles go by, right after the power went out. And it'd been a while since that when I started talking to him, and it was a fatality accident. Somebody just went off the road for whatever reason. I don't have any idea. Hit a serious power line. The power line was down over the road, and reports were that it was going to be 7 to 8 hours before they could get the road cleared, after they do the investigation of the scene and then fix the power lines. And this is one of the only highways through this area. Tons of RVs, people, so I knew traffic was going to be backed up forever. And the option was basically to go back up over the mountain towards Victor, and then back up over the mountains again into Jackson, and then go down the other side of the mountains through Jackson in Wyoming. And that was just a lot of backtracking through really bad weather, and we didn't want to be doing that. So I was talking to him. We're trying to figure out what we want to do, and this little lady that works at the store, who's also a local, who is maybe 4 feet tall, she overhears, and she comes up, and we start talking. She's like, well, that accident is 7 miles down the road. And I'm like, okay. It's like, well, if you go back up the road, across the river, and right after the bridge, turn left on this dirt road will take you 9 miles down the road and come out by the dam on the lake, and you'll be south of the accident, and you can keep going. And so I start like, okay, I started asking her about the road. She's like, well, it's gravel, and we drive it all the time in cars. It's a nice road. I was like, well, I got my daughter with me, and she doesn't really like riding on dirt, and if it's going to be all really nasty, she's like, oh no, you shouldn't have any trouble. So I run it past Sarah, and it's like, look, we can go as slow as we need to. It's 9 miles. They say they can drive cars on it, but it is raining, or we can go basically spend another day trying to get around all this going the long way. And she's like, well, we'll try it. Now, she's kind of weird. She doesn't like sand. She doesn't like loose gravel. But for some odd reason, mud doesn't seem to bother her. And I will take sand and gravel over mud any day, all day, every day. But anyway, we get on the road, and, it is a hard-packed road. It does have gravel in it, but it also has a thin layer, kind of slippery mud on top of it. There are cars driving on it. Once we get going down the road, we're running 20, 25 miles an hour, and it's raining pretty good. Daniel's leading. Sarah's either ahead of me or behind me for most of the ride. But by this time, enough people had found out about that road, I guess on their GPSs, I don't know, that there were a lot of people coming north on the road from below the accident, south of the accident, and they weren't locals, and they were hauling. You'd think you'd be on an unfamiliar road in the rain, on the mud, blind corners, blind hills, blah blah blah. Didn't slow them down. So some of the locals, they'd move over. They'd kind of give us room, and it was a fairly wide road most of the time. A couple places were kind of squiggly wiggly. Just had to slow down. It was just soft. There were some hills, but they weren't long. They weren't real steep. But we did get to this one part, and if you look on the map, you'll see it. It's a tight V shape. What that is we come around the right-hand corner, and it's a long, fairly steep downhill into a 10-mile-an-hour switchback. And Daniel pulls over to change out his GoPro battery about halfway down. So I'm ahead of Sarah, and I'm like, okay, just let it roll in first gear. You know, if you need to, kind of use that back brake a little bit, and let's control our speed. Don't let yourself start picking up speed. Well, we're getting close to the corner, and the whole, like, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 cars come by all at once. Trucks, cars, BMWs. And they're going through this 10-mile-an-hour corner. And for us, it's a left-hander, so we're on the outside. For them, it's a right-hander, so they're on the inside. Well, they're supposed to be on the inside. And they're taking this 10-mile-an-hour corner at 25, 30 miles an hour, and they're coming over onto our side, and we're pushed out onto the shoulder where it's real soft, trying to make this turn. And, you know, to Sarah's credit, I didn't hear any of those noises she makes when she's getting real unhappy. And, you know, she got around the corner. I don't know that she had too many close calls. Then there was a bit of a traffic jam below where Daniel was. I don't know what the problem was there. There were other trucks and stuff coming down, and eventually Daniel got around all that, and we got going again. And there was one car that let Sarah get by the car. And she said that car actually stayed far back, you know, so she wasn't feeling pushed, and was keeping the other cars off her tail. So that was really cool. I don't know who this person was, but thank you. You know, that was really nice. And then after that one switchback, it really wasn't too bad. I mean, it was just kind of sweepers, go over hills, go around corners, following the river. Absolutely incredible homes along the banks of this river. I mean, beautiful, beautiful homes. And then eventually we reached the dam and got back up on the highway, pulled over at an overlook there because it was kind of a neat spot to take some pictures. And, you know, Daniel's in front of me, and Sarah had gone on ahead, and his glove falls off his bike. And this has been an ongoing thing for all of us. You know, you stop and you're doing something, and all of a sudden, there goes your glove, and you're like, dang. You know, now you got to park the bike, get off, bend over, pick it up, get back on the bike. And yeah, you know, when you're all bundled up like the little kid on the Christmas Story, you know, it's not fun. So he very carefully bends all the way over on the left side and manages to grab that glove. And then when he tries to stand back up, he's on a bit of a slope, and there's gravel on his right side. And it, you know, from where I'm sitting, it looks like he just got disgusted and threw his bike on the ground on the right side. But he just couldn't get his foot down, so he just slipped and fell over. Very unceremoniously, just thump on the ground, and he just kind of stepped off. I'm like, huh. So he starts trying to pick it up, and I'm like, well, do you want help? And he just kept going. I was like, I'll help you. And he just kept going. So I whipped out my camera and videoed it, you know, and he got it all the way back up. And then he turns around and looks, and there's a glove on the other side of the bike, pretty far away. So he has to try to hold the bike and stretch out and kick it with his toe to get it to come back to the bike so he can reach it and get back on the bike. You know, and after that, you know, we took off, got going, no big issues, ran down US 26 to a little town called Alpine. And this is where the dirt road would normally be starting that we wanted to take. But at this point with the weather, I decided to just blow that off. So we pull into another pretty nice gas station. And we had passed some guys on BMWs going the other direction. One of them was on a GS, and one of them was on, I don't know what it is. It looks kind of like a Multistrada, but it's not a GS. Anyway, they turned around and came back to the same gas station, so I went out and talked to them. They were from Argentina, and they'd been on the road for 10 days. I think they came into Los Angeles, and they were going to be on the road for another month. But I don't know where these guys think they were going, because it's getting cold and it's getting wet, and all the locals up here are like, you know, it's time for winter. You know, they're expecting snow any time now. You know, usually the first week of October, sometimes late September. All the businesses are shutting down, restaurants are shutting down. You know, they're getting ready to batten down the hatches for the winter. So hopefully these guys are going to be heading to warmer climates. But anyway, we sat there for a pretty good while and warmed up. And I thought, well, let me see if we can find a hotel here in this town. And, you know, couldn't find one. Did find one in Soda Springs, which was up over another set of mountains on, I want to say Highway 31. You know, when we left Alpine, we went south a little ways. I think it was on US 89 and headed west on 31. And it was a really pretty ride. I mean, it was a nice ride. Again, the trees are starting to change. But man, that temperature, it started getting down to the low 40s, and it was raining pretty much steady, nonstop, sometimes hard. And, you know, even with the heated gear, even with the extra layers, it just starts getting cold. You know, your hands in particular really start getting cold. You know, my fingertips were starting to hurt. Sarah's fingers were really hurting. You know, core body temperature was fine. You know, I had on my heated vest, they had on their heated jackets. And even the feet weren't too bad. You know, they're both wearing waterproof socks because their boots aren't waterproof. I've got waterproof boots, but you know, it still just gets cold. Eventually we did get through the mountains and come out, and it was real pretty scenery. And you know, I wasn't at work, so it was an enjoyable ride. You know, sure, I'd rather it be warmer, but whatever. And we rolled into Soda Springs and stopped at a little gas station, figure out where the hotel was. Of course, we walk in the hotel, and the lady's looking at us like, "Are you riding bikes?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, this isn't a spacesuit, you know." It's like, didn't say that to her, but we get that response a lot. Like, "Are you riding in this rain?" It's like, yeah, it's kind of all we can do. But anyway, we got checked into a slightly smelly room. Pretty nice room. I mean, it's identical to where we stayed last night, except this one smells pretty bad. You walk in the hallway and come back in, it's like slap to the face. You come in, stay for 45 minutes, an hour, you kind of get used to it and don't notice it. But yeah, anyway, they had a lounge here, and the nice thing is they'll cook you a burger. So Daniel had we both had cheeseburgers for dinner. They weren't great, but we didn't have to put our gear back on. We didn't have to go anywhere. We didn't have to order out pizza or anything like that. And they even had Haagen-Dazs ice cream in the freezer in the little snack room for $7 for less than a pint. But it was good. Yeah, so neat lounge. So 15 minutes after we get checked in, it's like, wow, it looks like the clouds are breaking. I go outside, and sun's coming out. Turns into a beautiful evening, beautiful sunset. You know, going to be a very clear night, which probably means it's going to be cold in the morning. Not great. But yeah, tomorrow we'll start heading probably back into Wyoming, and I think we're going to try to hit the Flaming Gorge and drop south from there. And I can't remember the name of it, but there's a city in Utah, I want to say. I can't remember the highway that it's on, but it's a major highway that goes across Utah, south of Flaming Gorge. It runs kind of east-west, and there's a town there. We may try to get a hotel there, and hopefully it will start to warm up, you know, as we get closer down towards Grand Junction, Colorado, Moab, Utah, that area. And then I think we may do another 5, 6, 7 days of riding maybe in Colorado, you know, down around like Montrose and Durango and Ouray and Lake City and all that kind of stuff. And then start heading back to Farmington. So, you know, maybe 10 days on the road. I don't know, something like that. Shooting for getting home sometime around early October, first week of October. So anyway, crazy day weather-wise, and you know, we've been really, really lucky. We're on day 38, and this is the first time we've actually had to ride in the rain more than just some sprinkles. And also the first time it's gotten really, really cold and rainy while we've been on the bike. I mean, we had some low 40s, but it wasn't raining. And that makes a big difference. The lack of sunshine makes a big difference. It's one thing when it's 45 degrees and it's beautiful and the sun's shining on you, that, you know, it's cold, but mentally and physically it doesn't feel as cold as 42 degrees, no sunshine, nothing but rain, high wind, you know, that kind of stuff. So a big difference. So still, it's a good day. Nobody got hurt. Bikes are okay. And we got a warm, dry place to stay in. We got a hot meal. Sarah, they had like microwave dinners. She got like a pot pie, like a Marie Callender pot pie type thing. And that was okay. You know, she was all right with it. So, yeah, good day. So we'll see how it goes tomorrow, and we'll keep you updated. Bye.